Okay, let's talk a little bit about Parshat Kedoshim. So the Midrash already picks up on this, that Kedoshim is unique. Right? Kedoshim is a unique parsha in many ways. So the Midrash says as follows, Rashi quotes this, the Tani Rabbi Chia, Parsha zu ne'emra BiHakhel v'nei sherov gufei Torah tluyin ba. What does that mean, Chaim?
This one was something the parsha was.
Right, this parsha was said BiHakhel.
Oh, okay.
Right, it was said. Well, what exactly does Hakhel mean? So some of the Mefarshim, try to figure out what exactly it means. Now, obviously, there's a formal meaning to Hakhel. What's the formal meaning of Hakhel? The formal meaning. Like there's the formal mitzvah is the mitzvah of Hakhel, right, which happens every 7 years, the year following Shemitah, where the king has a gathering and reads the Torah, and in certain midrashic sources, which are channeled by the Rambam or maybe created by the Rambam, it's not quite clear. It's one of those interesting things. There's a midrash in Midrash HaGadol, which is a midrash which in many ways it was written or compiled after the Rambam, so sometimes creates midrashim around interpretations of the Rambam. It's sort of an interesting thing, but whatever it is, that Hakhel is supposed to mimic Har Sinai. And one of the defining features of Hakhel, especially in Chazal's mind, they make a big deal of this, is that who has to be present at Hakhel? Who has to be there? Everyone, right? And that's, if you look at the Rashash here, for example, on his comments on the Midrash Rabbah, he says what it means, Ulai Ratzalomar, B'chand af anashim v'atav hayu b'oto ma'amad k'mo shenemar hakel adam anashim v'atav k'dei sheyeh pumbi gadol. And maybe uniquely, Parshat Kedoshim has to have men, women, and children present to make it well known. His first interpretation seems to be slightly different, which is maybe other parshiyot were taught in groups, but this wasn't taught in groups. This was taught to everybody at once. But now, by the way, how does the Midrash know that this is said BiHakhel? Right, where does it get this idea? Because it says Daber el kol adat b'nei Yisrael, right? Which is this, right? Which sounds like it's not just not Daber el b'nei Yisrael, but Daber el kol adat b'nei Yisrael. Both the word kol imply totality, and adat, which implies a grouping, right? A congregation of the people. So, right, Chazal already find this hint that Kedoshim is unique. But why is it unique? Right? Why is it unique? So the Midrash has one answer to it. Rabbi Levi Amar, V'mnei aseret hadibrot klulin b'tocha. I think we talked about this last year, but let's refresh our memory, right? This is a standard midrashic trope for Kedoshim, which is that Kedoshim captures the aseret hadibrot. Now, that's sort of weird, because what does that imply, Sean? Right? What does an answer like that imply? An answer like that implies, I'll answer for Sean, right? What is that? It implies that really the most important thing are the aseret hadibrot, right? Meaning, right? And obviously building on this notion that, okay, maybe this is sort of like Sinai, that's why it's like Hakhel. So, okay, we go back to it. But that's a little bit weird, because then what parshiyot should really be in front of everyone? The aseret hadibrot, which they are. They're given by God to the whole nation, right? Why do you need Kedoshim to do that again? Like, you need reminders of the aseret hadibrot, right? That doesn't seem to be enough of an answer. So you have to push the midrash and notice that Kedoshim isn't just the Aseret HaDibrot. It's the Aseret HaDibrot, but in an importantly different way, and that is, it's the Aseret HaDibrot expanded. Meaning, if you understand the Aseret HaDibrot in a certain sense are overarching categories of types of mitzvot, Kedoshim is what that looks like if they are reflected through the lens of the higher demands of Kedusha, right? Meaning, in Kedoshim, we demand that Jews not just keep the Torah, but be Kadosh, which already, whatever Kedusha is, it seems to be demanding more, and the Aseret HaDibrot are reflected through that. So, for example, Anochi Hashem Elokecha U'Ktivach Ani Hashem Elokechem, fine, right? I am God. But you get some surprising ones. Again, some of them seem to be in many ways similar. Lo Yelecha, don't have other gods, so Elhei Masecha Lo Ta'asu. But you get some surprising ones. So like not surprising, some expansions, like Lo Tirtzach. So in the Aseret HaDibrot, Lo Tirtzach. What does Lo Tirtzach mean? Tirtzach. Don't kill. What's the version in Kedoshim? Lo Ta'almod Al Dam Re'echa. Don't stand idly by while your friend is dying. That's obviously an expansion, right? Lo Tirtzach is you can't be a murderer, right? Lo Ta'almod Al Dam Re'echa is your responsibilities are expanded to. Yeah, exactly, right? You can't even allow someone to die, right? I don't know why we were talking. Oh, yeah, I know why we were talking about this. Ora just bought a friend of ours from YU wrote during lockdown and having a baby and whatever, he wrote the Seinfeld Haggadah this year. So Ora is a big Seinfeld fan. I honestly don't understand that show at all. It's not really our generation. It's like my parents' generation, but still, I don't get that show at all. I mean, apparently the whole theory of it was the show about nothing. And when I watch it, that's exactly what I feel like. It's about nothing. But the last episode was apparently meant to shake people out of their beliefs because the theory of the whole thing was that it had to be different from other shows. So there wasn't allowed to be character development. Like, there were supposed to be different circumstances over like the decade that show was on, but they were never supposed to develop. They were just like these selfish, people. And then like the last episode was supposed to shake people out of their comfort because people grew to like these selfish, horrible people. And the last one, they watch a crime happen and don't do anything and are sent to jail on the Good Samaritan law. Because certain states have Good Samaritan laws where you can actually be put in prison if you stand by and don't do anything during it, right? So, but this is like an expansion, right? In theory, you're not actually doing anything wrong. You're not being a Good Samaritan, right? Another example of an expansion, Lo Ta'aneh, right? The Aseret HaDibrot tell you not to be false witnesses. Here you get Lo Telech Rachil, right? Outside the context of court, don't be a gossip monger, right? That's obviously an expansion. And then perhaps the most ambitious claim of the Midrash is Lo Tachmod. What mitzvah would you say is an expansion of Lo Tachmod? This is quite wild. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Right? So Lo Tachmod is don't desire that which other people have. The way the Midrash seems to be taking V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha is don't be jealous of what other people have because you've come to the point that you love them so much that you want them to have it just as you would yourself. So that's one level to this, right? Which is that what Kedusha is about is taking sort of basic moral legal obligations and expanding them in really quite demanding ways, morally and religiously. I'll note, by the way, that Kabed Avicha V'Imecha is expanded to Ish Aviv V'Imo Tira'o. It took me a long time to figure this one out, right? Which is, I think most people growing up think that growing up, which did you think was more expansive? Yira of your parents or Kibud Avim? Right, I think most people think Kibud, right? Yira is don't talk back to your parents, right? And kibbud av v'em is, clothe them and give them food, right? That's what the Gemara says. It took me a long time to realize that this is backwards. The Midrash has it right. We are obviously wrong. Because what does kibbud av v'em mean in context? Like the original context? Okay, good. I'm glad we're making it. We made it last year, but you forgot, so we'll make it again, right? Maybe I made it 2 years ago, in which case you forgot. Right? The reason we get this backwards is because we think of kibbud av v'em as a kid's mitzvah. But it's not. Why would there be a mitzvah that primarily applies to kids? Kibbud av v'em, like every other mitzvah, applies to adults. What's the primary manifestation of kibbud av v'em in most cultures in the world, just not 21st century Western culture? Yes, thank you. Is when your parents can't feed themselves and can't clothe themselves, and there isn't a structure in place for elder care. The most basic thing you can do for them is physically take care of them, right? Yira, which is when you are taking care of your elder parents who need physical help, don't snap at them, don't contradict them, right? That's actually an expansion, right? Right, when you think of kibbud av v'em as an adult mitzvah, right, primarily of middle-aged, right, people with their own families who are taking care of their aging parents, kibbud is more basic, right? Meaning there are plenty of people who will take care of their parents, but as their parents, become older and harder to take care of, they snap at them, they contradict them, they say, no, right, no, Dad, that's not right, you forgot this, right? Right? They're taking care of them, but being respectful is actually harder, right? So I do think that when you think of it not as a kid's mitzvah, but as an adult mitzvah for their aging parents, right, kibbud is the more basic, yira is the expansion. The Maharzu gives another possibility here, which is that in addition, I don't know if he wants this as a perush on the Midrash, or he's just giving another alternative, which is that these are actually two answers, right? Meaning the Midrash says, Rabbi Chia says, Rov Gufei Torah Tluyin Ba. Rabbi Levi says, because the Yasar Dibur are there. Now you could say that those are related. Marzuz says, no. Shirov Gufei Torah Tluyin Ba is very simple. What does it mean that most of the Gufei Torah, the bodies of Torah, the main laws of Torah are contingent on Kedoshim? What does it mean? Marzuz says something very simple. This is invoking a Gemara that we all know. And yes, I include all of us. We all know. I'm not just saying this because I know more Gemara than you, which I know is not an insulting thing to say. I should, right? But this is a Gemara we all know. You do know it. What Gemara? You're like, oh no, what Gemara am I supposed to know? But this one you do know. When the convert came to Hillel and said, teach me the whole Torah on one foot, he said, he said the negative side of it, which is that which your friend doesn't want, right, that which you don't want, don't do to your friends, do kol gal gadol v'idach zil gemor. Don't learn the rest. Meaning, v'havta l'recha kamocha do kol gal gadol b'Torah, and its inverse is what, meaning, v'havta l'recha kamocha, which appears in our parsha, right, is literally kol gadol b'Torah in certain midrashim, or its negative inverse is what you teach on one foot, and the rest is just a commentary on it. Right? I mean, we did all know that, right? We did all know that Gemara. So it could just mean literally, meaning it introduces the Ben Adam Lachavero rule, and I'll point out that Rashi actually doesn't think it's Ben Adam Lachavero. Rashi in Shabbat gives two interpretations of what V'havta l'recha means, which is either you and your friend, but he says Reacha could also mean Hashem. Right? Meaning, V'havta l'recha kamocha might actually include all Ben Adam L'Chavera and all Ben Adam L'Makom in one phrase. He also says that Shabbat, kibbud av v'em, theft, the laws against revenge, right? All of these are like massive principles that sort of influence everything else in Torah. So again, right, that's really, I think, the thing you have to realize is that, as much as we don't like saying, oh, one mitzvah is more important than the other, one part, right? The Midrash already knows that the Torah very much does present this uniquely, right? Either it was all taught in one group or it was taught to everyone, but it's mimicking a sort of a hakel, which itself is mimicking Har Sinai. And the reason seems to be because this is really a shift in terms of the way we think about mitzvah, right? Right, this idea that kedoshim to you, ki kadosh ani Hashem Elokechem, that Jews have to be holy because God is holy, right? That is like an overarching principle. Now, the mitzvah of kedusha itself might be part of it, but also what that means, which is taking basic moral principles and expanding them, demanding more of ourselves, right? Or things like v'ahavta kamocha, which infuse everything we do with meaning and context, right? Those demands give us the context of Kedusha, the content of Kedusha, right? In that sense, it really is shifting us forward in a way that many other parshiot don't. I'll just end with this, meaning what would be the best proof that this pushes us forward, besides for the content of this parsha? What's the best proof that that's the purpose of this unit? The fact that at Har Sinai, God actually says that what is our ultimate goal in accepting the Torah? Atem tiyu mamlechet kohanim v'goy kadosh. Right? That being a holy nation is actually like our goal as a nation. And therefore, the parsha that outlined what Kedusha looks like is obviously going to be super important in terms of our national definition. Therefore, it shouldn't be surprising that it's said in a national context. It shouldn't be surprising that it includes very demanding and all-inclusive mitzvah, because that's literally our national goal. Maybe next time we'll talk a little bit more about what all these mitzvot do, not just some of sort of the more famous ones, but what they do as a unit. But we'll stop there.